My family uninvited me from Christmas at the $8,000 cabin I paid for. Yeah, you heard that right. Stay with me while I walk you through what happened. And if it hits you the way it hit me, maybe show some love by subscribing, leaving a like, and sharing this with someone who needs to hear it. My name's Isabella. I'm 28 years old, and I've been working as a nurse for what feels like forever. Every year, while my family enjoyed their holidays, I was the one on call, spending Christmas nights in a hospital ward instead of around a tree. This year was supposed to be different. I had saved for months, picked out the perfect luxury cabin in Colorado, and dropped $8,000 to make sure my parents, my brother Ethan, and his wife Megan could all have a holiday to remember. I imagined us cooking together, skiing in the mornings, laughing by the fire at night. For once, I thought I'd finally feel like I belonged. A week before we were supposed to leave, my phone rang. It was my mom. She hesitated at first, which immediately set off alarms in my head. Then she sighed and said, "Isabella, we think it's better if you don't come." I froze. "What do you mean?" "I booked the cabin. I paid for it." Her voice was soft but firm. "Sweetheart, you know how you can be. You're a little controlling sometimes. We just think the trip will be more peaceful without you." "Peaceful without me?" My chest tightened. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I could barely process her words. "So you're all still going?" "Without me?" There was a long silence before she answered. "Yes." I hung up the call in shock, staring at my phone like it had betrayed me too. My own family had just erased me from the Christmas I made possible. Ethan didn't call to explain. Megan didn't bother reaching out either, though I wasn't surprised. She never missed a chance to throw shade at me, reminding me I was single while she flaunted her perfect marriage. What cut deepest was that my parents, the people I thought would always have my back, had sided with. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment with Christmas lights still tangled in the box, tears streaming down my face. For years I'd swallowed the little jabs, the way Ethan was always the golden child, the way Megan treated me like an outsider, the way my parents never stood up for me. But this was different. They hadn't just left me out of a dinner or a family photo. They had stolen the very holiday I sacrificed so much to create. And in that moment, hurt turned into something sharper. Betrayal lit a fire in me I hadn't felt before. They thought they could cut me out. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, after barely sleeping, I sat staring at the cabin confirmation email on my laptop. My name was still right there at the top. My card had been charged, my signature on the dotted line. The $8,000 hadn't come from some family fund. It had come from me, from double shifts and skipped vacations. And yet, somehow, they thought they could just take it and cut me out. The realization hit me like a punch in the gut. They weren't canceling the trip. They were still going. They were going to enjoy the Christmas I had planned, in the cabin I paid for, while I sat at home alone. My chest burned as the truth sank in. I grabbed my phone and called Ethan. He answered with his usual bored tone, like even picking up was a favor. "What now, Bella?" I swallowed hard. "What do you mean, what now? You guys are still going to the cabin?" "The one I paid for." He sighed loudly, like I was already exhausting him. "You always make things about yourself. This isn't a big deal. Just let us have this trip. Don't ruin it for everyone." I could feel my hands shaking. "Ethan, I worked for this. I saved for this. You don't get to push me out." He cut me off sharply. "God, Bella, you're so dramatic. You can't stand it when things don't revolve around you." Then the line went quiet for a second before Megan's voice cut in, sharp and smug. She must have been on speaker. "Of course she's upset," Megan sneered. "She's single, bitter, and jealous. Who wants her around anyway? She'd just make everything miserable." Her words stabbed deeper than I wanted to admit. I bit down on my lip so hard it hurt, holding back tears. "Wow," I whispered. "You really think that?" Megan laughed, low and cruel. "I don't have to think it. It's obvious." Before I could respond, my mom's voice joined the call, her tone trying to sound soothing. "Bella, please don't fight. We just want a calm, happy Christmas. You know how tense things get when you're around." That broke me. My own mother, my safe place, was siding with them. I felt like my voice didn't matter, like no matter what I said, I'd always be the outsider, the extra piece they wished they could remove. I hung up before they could say anything else. My apartment was silent, except for the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I set the phone down and pressed my palms into my eyes, but the tears came anyway. That night I cried until my pillow was soaked. Every memory came rushing back. Times they'd laughed at me, ignored me, treated me like less. I'd always convinced myself that deep down, I was loved, I was part of them. But now, staring into the dark, I couldn't help but wonder, had I always just been the outsider in my own family? The next morning, after crying myself empty, I opened my laptop again and stared at the cabin reservation. My name was still bold at the top of the contract. My credit card had been charged, and the receipt was linked to my email. Everything about that cabin, every wall, every bed, every snow-covered inch, was tied directly to me. The realization should have comforted me, but instead it made my blood run hot. How dare they cut me out and still plan to enjoy something I alone had provided? I scrolled slowly through the booking details, my eyes lingering on my signature at the bottom of the contract. It wasn't theirs. It had never been theirs. It was mine. A rush of memories hit me. The long hospital shifts where I stayed past midnight, the double shifts on Christmas Eve when the rest of the world was celebrating. I remembered watching families reunite in the hospital lobby while I kept working, whispering to myself that one day I'd get my own holiday with my family, a holiday that made all the sacrifices worth it. But now, the very people I had sacrificed for were telling me I didn't belong. It was like years of pushing my own happiness aside had built up to this moment, and all at once, the weight of it crushed me. My mind drifted back to childhood, memories I usually tried to bury. Ethan had always been the golden child. He was the one who got praised at school events, the one who received the bigger slice of cake at birthdays, the one my parents never seemed to say no to. I remembered being 8 years old, sitting at the edge of the living room as Ethan showed off his trophies while Mom and Dad beamed with pride. I had held up my little art project, desperate for the same attention, and all I got was a distracted, "That's nice, Bella." That pattern never stopped. Ethan's needs always came first, his mistakes always forgiven. Megan stepped into that role perfectly, feeding off it, making sure I stayed in my corner as the unwanted one. And every time, I told myself it didn't matter, that if I worked harder, tried harder, maybe one day they'd see me. But this Christmas, this betrayal, proved the truth. I'd never be enough for them. I sat back in my chair, wiping at the last of my tears. The grief was still there, but something else sparked beneath it, something sharper, steadier. I whispered it out loud, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. If they don't want me there, they won't be there either. The words lingered in the quiet room, and for the first time, they felt right. My family had drawn the line. They had chosen to push me out. But I wasn't going to sit back and let them steal what I had built. Not this time. Not ever again. The following day, I picked up the phone and dialed the cabin rental company. My heart was racing, my fingers trembling slightly as I held the receiver to my ear. A cheerful receptionist answered, confirming the details of my reservation. I forced my voice to stay calm as I asked, "So, everything is still under my name, right?" "Yes," she replied. "The reservation is fully yours. You're the only one with control over it. Do you want to make any changes?" I hesitated, then asked the question that had been eating at me. "What about the access codes to the cabin? Can those be updated?" "Of course," she said brightly. "We can change them anytime you like. We can even reset them during your stay if needed. And if for any reason you want to cancel, you're the only one authorized to do that." Her words lit a spark inside me. I had all the power, and they had none. My family could plan, pack, and dream all they wanted, but at the end of the day, I was the one holding the keys. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there for a moment, staring at the wall. The sadness was still heavy in my chest. I couldn't ignore how much it hurt to be unwanted by the people I loved most. But now, that pain was mixing with something else. Determination. A quiet fire that was growing stronger by the second. Instead of canceling the reservation right then and there, I made a choice. I would wait. Let them think everything was fine. Let them make their plans, pack their matching pajamas, and brag about the trip they thought was theirs. I would play along in silence, biding my time until the perfect moment. That evening, I went online and ordered myself something I hadn't bought in years. A holiday outfit just for me. A warm red sweater, soft leggings, and cozy boots. Things I could wear while sipping cocoa by the fire or walking through the snow-covered town. It felt almost foreign to do something purely for myself, but as I hit checkout, a small smile tugged at my lips. I closed my eyes and imagined it. Me alone in the cabin, the fire crackling, the Christmas tree lights glowing, snow falling outside. For once, no judgmental comments, no sharp remarks, no constant reminder that I was the outsider. Just me in peace, enjoying the holiday I had built with my own hard work. The sadness still stung. I couldn't deny that. It hurt to picture my mom laughing at Ethan's jokes, Megan posing for photos, my dad nodding along like everything was fine. But for the first time, I didn't feel powerless. They might have pushed me aside, but they had no idea I was already preparing the sweetest revenge. This Christmas wouldn't be theirs. It would be mine. The group chat was buzzing nonstop, my phone lighting up with message after message. Ethan was going on about the ski gear he'd just bought, bragging like he was already some professional on the slopes. Megan was worse, sending endless links to cute Christmas pajamas and dropping hints about how perfect the cabin backdrop would be for her photos. She didn't say the words out loud, but I could almost hear her tone. This trip will be picture perfect, now that Isabella isn't there to ruin it. My mom chimed in now and then, asking about meals or suggesting board games, always sounding cheerful, as though nothing about their betrayal was wrong. They were planning it all openly, right in front of me, and not once did anyone ask if I wanted to add something, or if maybe I had thoughts too. It was deliberate. They wanted me to see them moving on without me. I sat there in silence, staring at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard more than once. I wanted to type 1,000 things. You're welcome for the $8,000. Don't forget whose name is on that cabin. You wouldn't even be going if it weren't for me. But every time I stopped myself. I wasn't going to waste my words. They didn't deserve them. Then, in the middle of Megan gushing about the perfect family photo she was already planning, a new message popped up. It was from my dad. Wish you could join us, Bella. That was it. 6 words. Not even a question, not even a defense. Just a limp little phrase tossed into the group chat like it would somehow fix everything. I stared at it for a long time, my chest tightening. If he truly wished I was coming, why hadn't he spoken up when Mom told me to stay away? Why didn't he defend me when Ethan dismissed me, or when Megan called me bitter? Why was he always so quiet until it was too late? My phone buzzed again, Megan replying with a heart emoji to Dad's message, like she was mocking me. Ethan sent another joke, shifting the topic back to their plans, and just like that, the moment passed. My father's half-hearted attempt meant nothing. I bit my tongue until it almost hurt. I could feel the anger simmering beneath my skin, but I held it down. Not yet. They thought I was sitting at home, small and powerless, watching them live the life I wasn't allowed to be part of. But the truth was, I had more control than they could even imagine. So I stayed quiet. I let them laugh, let them plan, let them picture themselves in that cabin. I lurked in the chat, a ghost in the corner, unseen but always there. My silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Because when the moment finally came, my words would cut deeper than anything I could have typed now. The snow crunched under the tires of Ethan's shiny black SUV as it pulled up the long driveway to the cabin. I could see them through the frosted window from where I sat inside, the fire warming the room and a mug of hot cocoa resting between my hands. Their voices carried faintly through the crisp winter air as doors slammed and laughter filled the driveway. They were loud, cheerful, the picture of a perfect holiday family, at least on the outside. I leaned back against the couch, my heart racing with anticipation. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. Through the glass, I watched as Ethan popped the trunk and started unloading bags, his usual confidence on full display. Megan stepped out in her expensive fur-lined coat, already pulling out her phone to admire the snow like she'd discovered it herself. My parents followed behind, bundled up but smiling, their arms full of neatly packed luggage. They looked so ready to enjoy the holiday they thought was theirs. Ethan marched up to the front door with the cabin's code memorized in his head. I could almost hear his voice as he punched it in, expecting the lock to click open. Instead, the keypad blinked red. Denied. He frowned, tried again, slower this time. Red again. From inside, I sipped my cocoa, the taste sweeter than it had ever been. Ethan? Megan's sharp voice cut through the quiet. It's freezing out here. Open the door. I'm trying, Ethan muttered, pressing the numbers again. His jaw was tight, his breath visible in the cold air. Still red. Still locked. My mom stepped forward, confusion on her face. Are you sure you put in the right code? Yes, Mom, I know the code. Ethan tried again, harder this time, his finger jabbing the buttons like force would make a difference. But the keypad stayed stubbornly red. Megan huffed dramatically, pulling her coat tighter. This is ridiculous. We're standing out here in the snow like idiots. Call someone, Ethan. I don't understand, my dad muttered, rubbing his gloved hands together. It should be working. Meanwhile, I was curled up in the cabin's warm glow, watching the flames dance in the fireplace. The heat of the cocoa seeped into my palms, steadying me, comforting me. Every knock that rattled the door, every muffled voice rising in frustration, sent a shiver of satisfaction down my spine. They were locked out of the world they thought belonged to them, because it never did. The knocking grew louder. Ethan's voice was sharp now, almost frantic. Why isn't this working? Megan's complaints overlapped his, her voice shrill with anger. My parents knocked timidly, calling my name, as though maybe I would appear from nowhere to fix it all. But I was already here. Inside. Warm. In control. I held the mug to my lips, listening to their chaos outside, my heart pounding with the thrill of it all. For the first time in years, I wasn't on the outside looking in. They were. And it felt perfect. The pounding on the door grew louder, shaking the frame. I set my mug down on the coffee table and stood, my heart thudding in my chest. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I walked slowly to the door, savoring every second, and with one deep breath, I pulled it open. The cold air rushed in, along with the sight of my family huddled together on the porch, their faces flushed from the wind. For a split second, their expressions lit up with relief. But the moment their eyes focused on me, The relief twisted into confusion, then disbelief. Ethan was the first to speak, his voice sharp. "What are you doing here? We told you not to come." I leaned against the doorframe, my expression calm, almost amused. "Funny," I said evenly, "since my name's on the reservation. What are you doing here?" For a moment, there was silence. The kind of silence that bites in the cold, sharp and cutting. My mom's mouth opened as if to say something, but Megan cut her off, her voice laced with venom. "This is pathetic," she snapped, glaring at me like I'd just ruined her big performance. "You're really so desperate for attention you had to sneak here and play games? God, Isabella, it's embarrassing." Her words didn't pierce me the way they used to. Instead, I almost laughed. I stood a little taller, my voice steady. "Pathetic? What's pathetic is thinking you can take advantage of me and then shove me aside like I don't matter. Let me make this clear. I paid for this cabin. My signature, my credit card, my booking. And you all uninvited me from my own holiday." Ethan stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "You're overreacting. We just wanted a peaceful Christmas without your drama." I raised my eyebrows, letting his words hang in the air before answering. "Without my drama? You mean without my money, without my effort, without the person who made this trip even possible? You didn't want me here, but you wanted the cabin. You wanted the luxury without the person who gave it to you." Megan scoffed, her arms crossed tightly. "So what now? You're just going to keep us standing out here like we're beggars?" I tilted my head slightly, meeting her glare. "That's exactly what you are right now. Beggars. Because this," I gestured behind me to the warm glow of the cabin, the fire flickering inside, "belongs to me. And I think you should leave." Their faces were a mix of shock and anger. My mom finally tried to intervene, her voice trembling. "Bella, please, don't do this. We're family." I looked at her, my chest heavy but my voice unshaken. "Family doesn't treat me the way you have. Family doesn't erase me. You made your choice when you uninvited me. Now I'm making mine. Leave." And with that, I held the door open wide, not as an invitation, but as a dismissal. For the first time, I was the one setting the terms. The cabin, once silent and warm, erupted into chaos the moment Isabella's words landed. "You can't be serious," Ethan snapped, his voice cutting through the crackle of the fire. "You're really going to throw your own family out on Christmas?" Isabella sat back on the couch, legs crossed, cocoa steaming in her hands. "No, Ethan," she said, her tone calm but sharp as glass. "I didn't ruin Christmas. It was ruined the moment you all decided I didn't belong here. This is my reservation. My money. My cabin." Her father stepped forward, his expression tight with frustration, but his eyes pleading. "Isabella, come on. Don't do this. We're family. Don't let this petty fight destroy Christmas." She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head slowly. "Family?" she repeated. "A family doesn't uninvite their daughter, their sister, from the holiday she paid for. You didn't think I mattered when you made that choice. So tell me, why should I think you matter now?" Her mother muttered something under her breath, but it was Megan who snapped first. "This is pathetic," she spat, her cheeks flushed red with fury. "You think you're so clever sitting here alone like the Grinch. No wonder nobody wanted you." Isabella leaned forward, setting her mug on the table with a quiet clink. "Careful, Megan," she said, her voice low. "You're trespassing. Technically, I could call the police right now. Or," she reached to the side table, pulled out a neat stack of brochures, and tossed them onto the coffee table. "You could head to town. The Pine Lodge has vacancies. You'll find it very affordable." The color drained from her father's face as he glanced at the brochures. "You actually booked us out of here?" "No," Isabella corrected, her smirk widening. "You booked yourselves out when you tried to cut me out. Actions have consequences." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides. "You're going to regret this," "I'll take legal action if I have to. You can't just." "You'll do nothing," Isabella interrupted sharply, rising to her feet. She pointed toward the door. "Because the contract is in my name. The receipt is in my email. The credit card was mine. You have no legal ground here. And you know it." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint howling of wind outside, rattling against the windows. Then, reluctantly, her father picked up his bag. Her mother followed, lips pressed thin. Ethan swore under his breath as he grabbed his keys. Megan, though, was last to move, her glare burning into Isabella as though she could set her alight with rage alone. "This isn't over," Megan hissed, slamming her suitcase shut. Isabella only smiled, leaning against the doorway as they shuffled toward the cold, dark night. "Merry Christmas," she said sweetly, her voice dripping with irony. The door shut behind them with a satisfying thud. For the first time in years, Isabella felt peace settle into her chest. Christmas was hers at last. Snow blanketed the world outside the chalet, glittering under the soft glow of Christmas lights strung along the balcony. Isabella sank into the oversized armchair by the stone fireplace, a steaming mug of hot cocoa in her. For the first time in weeks, she felt her chest loosen, the tension that had been wound tight by betrayal beginning to unravel. She was alone, but it was her solitude, her peace, her victory. Earlier, she had stood her ground, faced the cruel words of her brother, the scorn of Megan, the half-hearted pleas of her parents. And she hadn't crumbled. No, she had claimed what was hers, the chalet she had paid for, the holiday she had envisioned, the joy she refused to let them strip away. Now, with flames crackling and the scent of pine filling the air, Isabella let herself breathe deeply, tasting the sweetness of independence. The next morning, she slipped into her ski gear and headed to the slopes. The snow was powdery, perfect beneath her skis. As she glided down the mountainside, wind whipping her hair and the sun catching the snowflakes like shards of crystal, laughter bubbled out of her. Not the forced, polite laugh she gave at family gatherings, but a real one, pure and unshackled. She was free from their dismissal, their manipulation, their constant reminder that she was never quite enough. Back at the chalet, the hot tub steamed, inviting her. Isabella lowered herself into the bubbling warmth, watching the sky turn pink and gold as the sun set behind the peaks. She toasted herself silently, raising her glass of wine. This was her Christmas, not theirs. Every sip, every bite of food, every moment by the fire was a reclamation, a reminder that she had chosen herself when they had chosen to cast her aside. Meanwhile, she could almost picture them in the dingy motel she had sent them to, cramped in a double room that smelled faintly of cigarettes, fighting over who had to share the pull-out bed. Megan no doubt railing at Ethan for letting her sister win, her parents exchanging weary looks, as if they hadn't been complicit in the betrayal. The thought made Isabella smile, not cruelly, but with a quiet satisfaction. They were reaping what they had sown. Still, beneath the joy, a pang of hurt lingered. They were her family, and once upon a time, she would have given anything for their acceptance, their love. But as she curled beneath the thick wool blanket by the fire that night, watching the flames dance, she realized something profound. Sometimes, revenge wasn't about destroying others. It was about reclaiming yourself. For the first time in years, Isabella didn't feel like the unwanted outsider. She felt strong. She felt whole. And as snow fell softly outside, she smiled to herself, knowing she had not just won the holiday, she had won herself back. The snow had barely melted from her boots when Isabella returned home, but the silence from her family was louder than any storm she had faced at the cabin. No phone calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive Merry Christmas posts on social media. Just a void, as though she had been erased from the family narrative. At first, the quiet unsettled her. After years of being the peacemaker, the one who smoothed conflicts and swallowed her own hurt to keep the family together, their absence felt foreign. But then it started to feel freeing. 2 days after Christmas, her phone buzzed with a single message from Ethan. His words dripped with bitterness. "You'll regret this." Isabella stared at the glowing screen, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. 100 responses swirled in her mind, sarcasm, anger, even forgiveness. But for the first time, she felt no compulsion to defend herself, no need to justify her choices. She simply locked her phone and slid it face down on the table. Instead, she made herself a cup of tea, sat by her own fireplace, and let the warmth soak into her bones. She thought back to the cabin, the crisp mornings she spent skiing alone, the evenings she soaked in the hot tub while snowflakes drifted around her, the peaceful hours reading by the fire. For years, she had sacrificed those kinds of moments to keep everyone else happy. This Christmas, she finally claimed them for herself. She knew her family was still stewing. The image of them crammed into a dingy motel, fighting over thin blankets and cheap takeout, replayed in her head. A small, almost guilty smile tugged at her lips. She didn't wish them harm, but the irony wasn't lost on her. They had pushed her out of the holiday she paid for, only to end up miserable while she thrived. It was a lesson she hoped would sting. Yet, beneath the satisfaction, there was an ache. Blood ties had always been her anchor, even when they cut her deepest. To finally see them for what they were, conditional, self-serving, and cruel, was both liberating and devastating. She realized she had been clinging to an illusion, begging for scraps of love from people who saw her as expendable. That night, Isabella wrote in her journal, words spilling from her heart like a final goodbye. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by respect, by care, by people who choose you even when it's inconvenient. I gave them every chance to treat me like family. They chose betrayal. This Christmas, I finally chose myself. Closing the journal, she felt lighter. For the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting for their approval, their validation, or their apology. She had created her own peace, and no silent treatment or bitter threat could take that away. Isabella leaned back in her chair, listening to the crackle of the fire, and smiled. Christmas wasn't ruined. It had just been rewritten. This time on her terms. Do you believe Isabella made the right choice by cutting ties and choosing peace over constant betrayal? Or should she have tried to keep the bond alive despite the hurt? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear different perspectives. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll always catch the next one.